It seems like a lifetime ago that I even sat in a car. I spent that whole first weekend at Talladega in a porta-john. What went from my worst racetrack, I bet statistically is my best racetrack.
Not everybody can say that they won their second Cup race.
When they throw the green flag today, if they all blow up on the first lap, I don't care.
You put those headphones on the counter. See you guys next week. Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by Nascar on Fox. And today we have one of my co-workers.
This is weird.
Kind of.
Yeah,
kind of.
A little bit. Yeah.
14 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
Jamie McMurray, thanks for taking the time this weekend.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, well, it's fun. We've been going back and getting some guys that aren't in the middle of everything weekly on the track, and trying to tell the stories. And I think the fans have really appreciated the old Skinner and Hornaday and we are old.
Those were good moments back then.
We are old.
Are you older than me? I think you are by like 6 months.
I'm going to be 50 this year.
Oh, I just turned 49. Yeah, so I think you're like 6 months older than me. Yeah, it's interesting, Kevin, because I feel like you have these conversations all the time, but like 30 was old at one point.
Yeah,
and then 30 is not old because you're 30.
We make it not old.
And now 50 is not old either.
No,
because I know a lot of people over 50. Yeah,
and I think when you look back at your career, it seemed like an eternity. At least it did for me, that I drove and was a part of things. And now that you're out of it, seems like a long time since I've been in it.
It does for you too.
Yeah.
100%. And my wife and I talk about this all the time. Actually, Pockris did this really cool piece before, I don't remember what race it was before, but it talked about my 2010 season. And it was, I think he sells it as like what you kids don't know. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
That means that they weren't born most likely when this happened. But I listened to this on the couch, and Christy was in the other room, and it was pretty long. And of course I listened to the whole piece. And when it was over, she came in, and you know her, she doesn't talk a lot. Yeah. And she's like, does that make you sad? And I'm like, a little bit. I'm like, it does. I'm like, I miss that. Like those were your favorite memories.
Yeah. And
she's like, that seems like a lifetime ago to me. And I said, and I'm like, me too. Like I remember all that, but it seems like a lifetime ago that I even sat in a car. It happens quick. I think that happens 2 or 3 years after you're out. It just, it goes away quick and time moves on and yeah, that's life. But it does seem like forever ago.
When you talk about that year, I mean, would you consider that the best year of your career?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
And I think when you look back, I mean, you won the Daytona 500, you won the Brickyard, and it was just one of those years that come together. And I was fortunate to go through some of those years as well. And they're not easy to come by. And you work your whole career to have 2 or 3 of those years. And we talk so much about Kyle Larson and you look at all the great things he's done, and now you're talking about Kyle Larson being off compared to where he's normally. But that's racing, and it's so hard to maintain that edge. But what do you think made that year so good for you guys?
I wish I knew. I mean, I think, I would tell you that, and you were a part of the ECR engine program for that time period. They were pretty special at not just the intermediate or short tracks, but they were really good at the super speedway tracks. I mean, everywhere we went, we felt like you had like the best engine package for that year. I think that Ganassi also was ahead of most of the teams on some aero stuff at that time, whether it was with the splitter or like, I don't remember exactly the details of that, but I just know that when we came back from the GM would go wind tunnel all the cars, and I didn't know this in 2010, but 2011, 2012, we struggled. And when you would look at all the GM cars, we were the lowest. But in 2010, when they'd go to the wind tunnel, our cars were always at the top of that list.
Right.
And so, when you put together the best engine package, the best aero package, and, the team is working well together, I mean, it was just really good. And it wasn't just, I mean, it was those races you mentioned were good, but we also finished second in the Coke 600. A caution, cost a late race win there. Darlington, I finished second in the Southern 500. It was just like every time we went to a fast racetrack, we always had really good speed.
What was Chip like as a boss? I know that year was good, but you worked for him and with him for a while.
My relationship with Chip was completely different from 2002 when I filled in for Sterling till I left in 2005. That was a different relationship than I had when I went back in 2010. When I went back in 2010, there was no sponsors for that car at the time. Like Bass Pro Shops was kind of part-time then. McDonald's wasn't there. And I think I had grown up a lot as a person. And Chip and I did all that together with the team of building all that back up. And so it changed we turned into friends as much as anything. And he's still one of my really good friends. I mean, I text Chip, on a regular basis still. And I look up to him. He taught me a lot. He was one of those guys that you would sit in a room with him, and anyone that knows Chip will appreciate this. And he'll give you like 15 seconds of awkwardness and not say anything and just look at you. And he will always say, "What else?"
Yeah.
And it draws you into saying things that you don't want to say.
Yeah.
And he just, and I just remember through contract negotiations or when sponsors would leave the team, I always envied Chip because he never panicked. He would always just like kind of let things ride out. And I was always like, we need to, in my mind, I'm like, we have to figure this out soon. Like this, we got to get it worked out. And he was just always so patient. And I don't know that it always worked out for him because I know some things didn't, but most of the time it worked out. And I think a lot of that had to do with his patience in those situations.
And I think when you look back at Chip, he obviously had a knack for timing of when he brought people back and things he did with what you guys did kind of proves that.
Yeah.
But when you look at Kyle Larson and you were around during that time, what was that? How did Chip approach, how did that dynamic fit within the team, I guess, when he was always looking, it seemed like he was always looking for the younger guys, even when the boom started in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
He was always kind of ahead of that. And we were a part of that as the Cup teams started to age out all their drivers. It always seemed like a really interesting dynamic there. You went left or you worked there and then came back.
Yeah.
And so it was always interesting to see how Chip picked people up. And I guess the thing for me is, how did you wind up at Chip's? Like how he was
initially?
Good at picking initially. Yes. How did you wind up at Chip's? Because you were sought after with everything that you had going on. And what was that chase like with Chip?
Yeah. So I don't really know, to be honest with you. The story that I was always told is, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Who was the head of PR for NASCAR forever?
Jim Hunter?
Jim Hunter.
Yeah.
Friends with Felix. And I think Jim Hunter took a liking to me in the Busch series at the time. And I think he poked Felix and was like, you need to look at this guy. And then I assume Felix and Chip got together and I got a call, from my agent at the time, and Chip had reached out and we went to this meeting. These were great. Like this doesn't happen anymore, but it was one of these meetings at the hangar at the Concord Airport. And I just remember, I was 24, 25 years old and I had never been to a Cup race at the time, right? I'm in the Xfinity series and I'd never stayed over for a Sunday race and it was only my second year of the Busch series and I just remember they're like, we're going to meet at the hangar over at the Concord Airport and Felix's hangar was like, I don't remember exactly. I just remember it was really nice, the conference room in it. And we had that first initial meeting and I was terrified, because I was so excited and I would have agreed to.
Did you go by yourself?
I don't remember.
Or did you take your agent?
I think my agent probably, I don't remember. Yeah. Like it's a little bit of a blur. I forgot the story until you started asking me about it.
That's how fast we move on from things.
Like I don't remember. But I just remember being, nervous and overwhelmed. And it's, it was crazy how that all worked out. And nuts.
So you go through that time, you get to Chip's. How does the conversation go when Sterling gets hurt?
Oh, so that wasn't with Chip. That conversation was with Andy Graves.
Okay.
And their shop at the time was up at exit 36 off Highway 150. It was actually the old Sabco building. And Andy called me into his
This is pre-Chip.
No, Chip's
Chip's
there, but
involved.
Chip's in Pittsburgh. And so Andy does the day-to-day work at, he's the team manager, at Ganassi. And he brought us in and it was like, I think, it went something like, I talked to Chip and Chip said, if we believe in you for next year, we're going to put you in it for the rest of this year. And of course and my life had changed so much in like 30 days of I didn't even know if I was going to have a ride to. Then I got this offer to go to Ganassi. To then they're like, by the way, you're going to get in Sterling's car, which Sterling was always, I don't want to say a hero, but Sterling was one of those legends for me, like growing up. Yeah. I mean, and like, I just remember, being nervous to even meet Sterling. And then to get in his car, and a car that you would, like, I think the only way you could appreciate this at home is if you're a late model guy right now and they call you to get in Kyle Larson's car or Christopher Bell's car, and you're like, what? This doesn't even seem attainable a year ago, and now all of a sudden it's all happening.
Yeah.
But that was Andy Graves. I remember having that conversation.
So do you remember the expectations of what you thought when you got into it? I mean, you're usually pretty nervous about things.
Kevin, I spent that whole first weekend at Talladega in a Porta-John because I had a girlfriend with me at the time, and we were in a motorhome, and it was a cheap motorhome. It had thin walls. And I remember my stomach was so upset.
Yeah.
I just spent the whole time in this Porta-John, like in the motorhome lot, because I just was terrified of that whole situation. And then, and Talladega, you get out there at that type of racing, and I just tried not to make anyone mad, is what I remember. Like, you just need to, they had a really fast car. Those cars were super fast at that time. Gosh. And I think we were running fifth or something and ran out of gas before the last pit stop and didn't finish well. But then going to Charlotte the next week, have you ever heard the story about Charlotte? I told this a few times. So when we went to Charlotte the following week, it was my worst racetrack at the time. I didn't like Charlotte. I would say if you had to base speed, for me, it was my slowest racetrack. And I struggled there in the Busch car. And I told Tony Glover, I was like, this is not a good track for me. And he's like, Jamie, I'm telling you, we have a really good setup for this track. Sterling always runs well here. You're going to be fine. And we went out in qualifying trim because that's what you did on Friday. Right. I remember leaving the pits. I'd never been wide open in a cup car before with full power.
They were fast.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is so fast. And I got to the end of the backstretch on the outlap, and I remember I'm like, I can't see because I feel like I'm going so quick, and it's rough, it's bouncing, and I miss the corner and have slide up the racetrack, and it's a disaster. And we make 2 or 3 runs, and we're last. I think we're the slowest car in qualifying trim on Friday practice. And I remember Glover coming down to my window net, and I'm sitting in the car, and he's like, he called everyone little buddy. And he's like, well, little buddy, you weren't lying. He's like, this is not a good track for you. And so, and I can laugh about it now, but in that process, Lauren Rainier, who was my spotter, and Glover and Lee McCall, that whole group was like, listen, there's a concrete patch or a patch in turn 3. You got to stay above that before you turn down. You got to take a late entry. And I just remember in my mind, Kevin, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, I've never seen that patch that they're referring to. And qualifying got rained out. And I was thankful for that because they were like 5th in points.
Because you only needed to pick up another second when you went to qualify.
That's right, yeah.
When you go to qualify at night in Charlotte.
I don't know why. I think because of the rain, Busch practice, we did it on Saturday morning. And I went out in the Busch car the next day, and it was a big difference in speed. Mm-hmm. And I left the pits, and I'm like, wow, this seems so slow. And I got to turn 3, and I'm like, oh, I see that patch they're talking about right now. And I drove around it, and I was like 3rd quick in Busch practice, which was unheard. Like, it was really good. And then we started the Cup race, and it just all clicked for me. And it's so weird because what went from my worst racetrack, I bet statistically is my best racetrack throughout my career. Like, Charlotte was just always a really good track for me. But that was quite a memory, quite a moment, quite a weekend for me.
Yeah. And it's not everybody can say that they won their 2nd Cup race.
I know. Well, yeah, I know. And it just,
all the stars lined up. And that's
how life works.
That's how life works. And,
yes.
And it's really about connecting the dots, no matter if you're working on the business side, if you're getting in a seat or whatever that is. But since we're working backwards, take me back to how you even became interested in racing and how it all started for you. We didn't race karts together necessarily, but we raced karts at the same time and here and there. And I still believe to this day, your son went through the karting system. My son went through the karting system. We both went through the karting system. Still believe 100% that's totally the best way to get the basics of racing at a high level.
At a young age.
At a young age. There's nothing that compares to it. But how did you get involved, just interested in racing at a young age?
So my dad always worked in racing. He worked for a company that sold parts like valves, rods, pistons for racing engines. And he was always into racing anyway, but then he traveled to engine shops, sold the parts to those shops. And so we always had racing stuff at home. He was into drag racing a lot, did some like dirt, I don't know, street stocks. I don't even know what they were. Like at the time, it wasn't late models, but it was just dirt racing. And he also was always trading. He just never had a car for more than a few weeks. He was always trading, trying to get something different. And
so nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. That's exactly right. And he ended up with a go-kart. And I think he was riding that or racing it. And I was 6, 7 years old. And, you go on the track with him and it seemed fun. And they bought me a cart. I got a cart for my 8th birthday. I remember, it's weird. I don't remember the meeting with Chip, but I can still picture walking from my parents' dining room out into our garage and seeing that go-kart sit there. And I remember my mom had taken a piece of paper and she had written happy birthday and taped it to the seat. Like I can see it, but that's where it started. Started racing go-karts in Joplin and, I did pretty good at it. And so we would travel around. You mentioned we raced karts, I think once together. It was in Garnett, Kansas. I remember you showed up for the nationals out there. And so, did karts and it was fun. Like, God, it was so different. And I try to explain to my kid, Carter, because he asked me about racing then. And I'm like, now when you show up to a national race, there's 40, 60 kids that show up. There might be 10 that showed up when we did national.
We thought it was big time. And you look at it now and it's not even close.
It's almost embarrassing. Like I look back at some of the pictures and I'm like, oh my God, I beat 6 kids that day. It's just, but it was hard then. It was different. You still are developing those skills, but I think that's why you see these guys now that come along and how good they are. It's because they had to beat more competition than you and I ever did.
Yeah. And when you go back to those days, you went from karts to what?
I got a pavement modified, but I want to make it clear, like when
like
people,
an IMCA modified.
Yeah. When people think of modifieds, they think of like what my kids do now. These big wide
Depends
tires.
on what part of the country you're talking to.
Yeah, this was mine was basically a dirt car, a dirt IMCA modified that we put a front sway bar in it and went and bought this engine from some guy's barn and threw it in.
Yeah.
I remember it was $3,000. I remember my dad giving the guy $3,000 cash. We came home, put the engine in, and we went racing. And we had an open trailer, and we still had a motorhome from like karting, and we would drive up to Lebanon, Missouri, Bolivar, Missouri, and we'd race on Friday and Saturday nights in this modified.
Every week.
Well, whatever the weeks where they raced, like it was only a couple hours. I think Lebanon was only 2 hours from my hometown. We would drive to Bolivar, race on Friday night, stay in the motorhome that night, and then drive to Lebanon, which is like another hour away. And we did that almost every weekend. And then there was also, you remember I-70. I-70 was about 3 hours from my house. It was fast. Really fast, especially in for a local type racing. We did that in Lakeside a couple of years also with my parents, but most of that was all in modifieds and I think in that same car for most of it. And I was really fortunate that the family that owned the track in Lebanon, Missouri, the Willard family, there was a guy there named Larry Phillips, who most people will recognize that name, like arguably the best short track racer ever, and for sure of his generation. He's in that same category as like a Dick Trickle or Alan Quickie or Rusty and Mark. Those guys all raced with Larry. Larry, when he would race, it wasn't if he would win. They would make him start I think 12th was the best he ever got to start. Sometimes they'd make him start last. People would figure out how many laps it took him to get to the lead because you knew he was going to win. And so the family that on that track, the Willards, Bill Willard, who turned out to be almost like a grandfather figure to me because both my grandparents died at a really young age for me. And Bill called my dad and was like, hey, I'd like to put Jamie in a late model at our track. And his idea was he wanted someone that could race with Larry and bring fans in and someone that could maybe beat him as a draw. And of course, for me, it was incredible because my family was never going to afford a late model. And it was a great experience for me because I moved to Lebanon, Missouri, to where they were. Bill and David Willard, they paid for all this racing, provided a shop, and I was the only employee, and we had a couple people that would come in and just kind of help, but like I did everything, and it was fun, man. Like I just I got to have really nice cars, and we had left-hander chassis at the time, and I remember left-hander had like a catalog like at the time, and you would go through and you just mark what you want, and you would call and give them the part numbers, and they would ship it to you. It was a great time, and that David Willard, he actually came to a couple of races this year with me. I still stay in touch with them because they were a huge part of my career, and fortunately, Kevin, when I got there, I don't remember how many races I won the first year, but if we raced 15 times, I maybe won 13 or 14 of them.
No kidding.
And so that was huge for my career because it kind of opened up some opportunities to move on and do other stuff.
So did it change the dynamic at the racetrack with the crowd and the people? Do you remember any of that?
It was a great time because some of these other tracks have this now, but they had that tiered parking, which is where you could park your car like from turn 2 to turn 3 all the way down the backstretch. They had like 2 or 3 tiers, and people would park their cars there, and they sold a lot of tickets. I mean, a lot of people went to those races, and I don't remember it. I'm not the right guy to ask on that, but it was fun because there was a lot of people in the stands, and it was fun for me because I was just a kid. I mean, I was 17, maybe 18. And, you'd sign autographs afterwards and people would come down, and it was a really good memory for me because no one had ever really beaten Larry.
Yeah.
And Larry became a friend of mine. Like I looked up to him probably as much as anybody in my racing career, not because I spent as much time around him, but I idolized him because he had a shop. He built his own cars from scratch. He built the spindles. He built everything. And it was always different. Like you couldn't buy what he had because he was making it.
Right.
Like the exhaust on his car was always unique. And he was a good cheater as well, right? I mean, like manipulating the body. And I just remember I would always sit back and look, and I'm like, man, like that's what I want to be. Like I want to figure out how to do the things that he's doing. And he never moved on to make it in racing, but he was so good at what he did. And I just, like people always ask me about heroes, and I'm like, I didn't really have a hero, but that was someone that I looked at that I was like, that's who I'd like to be one day.
And it's crazy. You could remember probably half the field that were in all those races, but
Totally.
you can't remember.
I know.
I'm the same way. Like I can remember all my go-kart races, all my late model races.
I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I think they're just core memories. And I think that's the difference between racing for the love of it and a hobby, and then it turns into, you love it, but you do it as you do it to make a living.
The same.
It's a job. It's just it's not the same once it turns into a job. So I hear a lot of the same places that our nut job teammate from Fox raced in. Did you ever cross paths with Boyer?
Clint?
Yeah.
No, never knew Clint.
Really?
No, Clint. So the Willard family, who I mentioned, when we had all that success at those local tracks with them, there was a series called Art Go at the time.
Yep.
And Art Go turned into, I think NASCAR owns it now, it turned into another series, but it was huge in Wisconsin. Like Steve Carlson, there was just a lot of, Kenseth came from there. There was a lot of great drivers, and it was hard because when you get to that area of the country, it's cold and snows a lot. So they race a lot in a short period of time.
Still do,
yeah. And so when I went up there, I was a little out of my league. Like, and I say that because I'd never been to a lot of the tracks that were on the series, but they were also a little longer races, and it was hard. And we got to go do that. And the group of guys that I did that with, Jeff Cassidy and Jamie Hager and Jeff Stacy, those guys, they traveled to all those races with me. And when I moved on to do the truck series, they didn't have any, they were still racing locally, like at I-70, but they got hooked up with Clint. And then they went and did all the same stuff with Clint.
Really?
And so, but I didn't know Clint. I didn't meet Clint until, probably until he made it to Cup, or maybe in the Xfinity series when we would cross paths. But I didn't know Clint at all.
That's wild that you guys grew up in the same part.
We weren't hanging with the same crowd. I can tell you that.
Yeah. and I think when you look back at that, I met Clint for the first time. He was still racing modifieds. I was driving. It's probably I don't want to say a year, but it's probably 2002 to 2005, somewhere in there, probably closer to 2005. But he was driving for a guy who owned local Sonic franchises.
Yeah, it was a sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Craig. And so Craig was heavily involved in the Sonic. He was always around at the racetrack when I was driving the Sonic car. Well, he sponsored Clinton. And the first time I met him was at an appearance in somewhere in the middle of Kansas at like a fair or something that we went to.
So Sonic was on the Xfinity car or the Busch car at the time?
Sonic was on the Cup car. They were associate sponsor on the Cup car.
Yeah, I kind of remember that now you're saying.
And I ran a couple individual Busch races with Sonic on there. So
Sonic was big in the Midwest.
Yeah, it was funny how all those dots
together.
Get connected. But interesting that you guys didn't really cross paths.
No, I never. No, I didn't meet him until I don't even know when I don't remember meeting. I don't know how I don't remember meeting him for the first time, but I don't. Yeah.
Well, since we brought up Clint, talk about your transition from when you figured out, okay, this is the end of my driving career, and trying to figure out what you wanted to do next and how that led to TV.
I remember being on a fishing trip for Cessna in Canada, and I was bunked with Dierks Bentley. And it was two people in each cabin, and our beds were like your feet were at each other. And there's no TV, no internet, no nothing, right? So like you'd go to the campfire and hang out, and when it was time to go to bed, you'd lay down and you might lay there for a while, right? And you just talked. And I remember laying there with him, and we talked about like what we would do when our careers were over. And I was like, Dierks, I have every intention when I'm done driving to disappear and people never see me again. I was like, I just, because you're in the thick of it, and it's just you're exhausted. And he was like, man, I kind of feel the same. I don't remember exactly how I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's like, I get it, And then when it came, to where I knew I wasn't going to drive anymore, I had that decision of do you hang on and go drive for a lesser team? But I was honestly like I wasn't ready to quit driving. Like in the moment, I'm like, well, I don't want to stop. Like I still want to do this. But at the same time, there was this huge sigh of relief when it was over of like, oh, thank God. Like you don't realize how stressful it is and how big of, how taxing it is on you and your family. And Fox was opening up the studio where we are. And they were going to have a full-time, pre-race guy that was going to stay at the studio. And I came in and I did Hub a couple of times with Adam and Shannon, and I had fun. Like I just remember coming in and doing it. And you're a small part of those shows. Like you might just do a segment or two, but I'm like, it's pretty fun. Like I left laughing, and I'm like, I kind of enjoyed that. And so I tried it for a year here, and I don't know, what I liked about TV and what I still like about it, and I think you would agree with me on this, is in racing on Monday, everybody meets at the shop and you go over what you did wrong, what you need to do better, what we need to do the next time we go to a road course, what breaks, you go over all these things. And you're always trying to get better. I missed that in racing, and TV opened that up to me again because you have a meeting on Tuesday. You talk about, well, what are we going to talk about this week? And even though TV is subjective and there's no winner or loser, when the shows are over, like, man, I think that based on what we said on Tuesday, we implemented that, did a really good job. Or I said some things that I felt like were really valuable. Or I went home a couple of times, and especially from here, the first year, and I'm like, Chris, they might fire me. I'm like, I don't know why they would keep me. I'm like, I just sound like an idiot on TV.
Yeah.
And so like, I like that because I feel like you got to work with the team again together, and I enjoyed all that.
And I think that the team aspect of it is something that a lot of people don't realize from when you're driving. It's all about the team. You're a problem solver.
Yeah.
And it's with the TV thing, I'm very similar to you. Being a part of a group of people, trying to figure out what you're going to do, what's right, what's wrong, having the debates of, what somebody thinks you should talk about or not talk about is fun. It allows you to be a part of the sport and not have all the pressure. For me, the relief 100%. And pressure has been so refreshing.
Well, I mean, Eric Almirola asked me this the other day about TV and like how I feel. And I'm like, Eric, here's the thing. I'm like, when you're driving and you have a flat tire with 5 laps to go, your week is over.
Ruined.
You're just like, you just want to vomit, right? I was like, Eric, when they throw the green flag today, if they all blow up on the first lap, I don't care. Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to go home. It's not going to change my life at all.
That's right.
And that is, man, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, that was the best thing for me was when the race was over. You put those headphones on the counter, See you guys next week.
I wish, Kevin, it's probably this way in life, but for sure in what we have done, I wish I could do everything backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I wish I could have done TV first, because if I could have, when I went back to my career, I would have handled things completely different in whether it was interviews or what I found value in, or seeing the other side of it. But at the same time, my biggest regret in racing is not enjoying it.
Yeah.
And you said that when you're go-karting, even though your dad's yelling at you and, and it's still fun, right? I mean, like, you're kind of hanging out with your buddies. Like,
it's not life or death. You're not trying to put food on the table.
No. Well, and it's not, and I think, I mean, even in racing, you weren't trying to put food on the table your last year, but you want to win, right?
Yeah.
And you get mad because someone else made a mistake that cost, and it's your name on the door, right? And that's the one thing about, I think, being the driver or the crew chief, I would say, is fair as well. Your name is there, and everyone, like, if there's an issue, that's who they blame initially. Right. And you just, there's very few people in professional anything, whether it's racing, I don't care what sport it is, that have fun.
Yeah. So you end your driving career, you go to TV, your life is much more relaxed, and now you're involved in the most stressful thing you're ever going to do in your life, and that's racing with your son.
Yeah.
How's that been? And for me, it's been fun because I still think back to those first conversations of when you went from, I watched you in go-karts, and then you came to the Legend team and our kids raced together. And it was so fun to see the transition from hands-on Jamie to, all right, I got to let him learn. I need to back off. And that to me was fun, because I went through the exact same thing.
It is hard because in karting, I mean, when I say I did everything, like I put the trailer on the truck, like I loaded it, I cleaned it, I did everything.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And it was so much fun. And then when we got to the Legend cars, I'm like, well, now I'm kind of just in charge of the GoPro, right? Like that's it. Like I was like in charge of the GoPro. And then 6 months in, I didn't even get to touch the GoPro. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And then, it's also really fun for me, like I don't really help anymore. Like when we go to the track, I don't even go with him for some of these because I'm at work. Christy goes with him. And so he has to do it all on his own. He has to do everything.
Right.
And I've watched him as a person grow more in 3 months this summer than the previous 5 years as a driver, because all of a sudden I didn't get to, because I would baby him. And I didn't do it. When I say baby him, I would change the visor when the sun started going down, because I'm like, I know if I don't do this right now that he's going to be like, right before he puts his helmet on, I'll be like, oh my God, the sun's down. And so instead of letting him learn those lessons, I would just do it. And I didn't even know I was babying him, right? I was just, because I'm like, well, if I was a driver, I would change my visor now. Like but I'm a prepper, like I like everything to be in line. But the last 3 months, like I don't even look at video with him anymore. And I have let him just ask me questions. He sent me some texts the last race they ran. He's like, do you think if I back my entry up? Like, and I was so proud, not because he asked the right questions, but because he asked questions.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, his head is thinking the way that it should. Because when you first go, I don't care if it's from karts to the Legend cars or Legend cars to stock cars, you just have to let him like go figure out how to fly, right? Like, and go screw up, go run into the back of someone. And it definitely aged me. Like, because it's just so taxing to watch the mistakes. Because as dad, when you only watch one car, 5 laps before it happens, you're like, I can see what's getting ready. You can you're like, I want to come on the radio, but you have to let them learn.
Yeah.
So it's been the hardest thing for me probably as a dad to kind of watch that learning curve go. And it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
Like the mistakes aren't just like, it's okay, son, we'll move on. It's like, damn, it's expensive.
Well, we might have to miss one race because you just wadded one up in the corner over there.
For no reason.
Yeah. And so what's the last thing about racing? What's the biggest difference that you see in today's world of trying to groom a young driver compared to how you were brought up?
Preparation. And I don't care what level it is. Just do karting. If you're going to go to a new go-kart track as a kid right now, you get on YouTube and you watch an hour of some other kid driving at that track, and you learn maybe not even braking markers, but just trends or just laps, like which way the track goes. It's just the drivers now have, if you're at the lowest level of karting, you can get on YouTube and watch races, past races. If you are, at the highest level, they have so many resources now. Like you might argue with me on this. I think some people will. I don't think it really matters if you know what a car does anymore. I as much as I would love for the kid to be able to pack the wheel bearings, I don't think that makes a great driver. And I say that because I've seen a lot of guys come along that don't know anything about race cars, Kyle Larson being one of them, and as good as they get. And so I think that it's all about having some ability, having, tremendous drive. Like that's the one thing that you can't teach a kid. Like you're this way too. The will to want is just,
it overpowers a lot of things.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like and for me, it's that way with everything in life. Like I don't care what I'm doing. I'm like, I want to figure out how to be the best at it, know? But to me, that's the big difference is just the resources they have and the preparation they can do before they even get to a track.
And they're freaking brave. They watch all those videos and think that they can go out there the first lap and just floor it.
And they do.
They do.
They do. Like honestly, most of the times we go to a new track, I'm terrified.
Oh,
like, my
it completely
God.
Freaks me out.
Stop.
I'm the same
Slow
way.
down. Like we have all day, right? You don't have to run within 1/10 of the track record on your second lap. It's just not that important, bleed the brake. Like let's just work the car in a little bit.
Yeah, they can watch all those videos and just immediately
They also pick up quick.
Yeah, they're smarter than we are.
Way smarter.
Yeah.
I know.
And I watch all those videos and they're like, you see this? Whatever. Their brain is functioning at a high level.
When you watch a video with Keelan, does he see different things than you do?
He does. And I think that's the one hard part about what we do is the things that we would coach are a little bit different. And I've learned this racing with Keelan. The thought processes that I have about, okay, I need to pace myself. I need to save my tires. None of that. They go out and it's how fast can I go all the time. You tell them not to slide the car. Every one of them are out there sliding cars around. Mm-hmm. And, I think just the mentality of how they race is so much different than the way that you and I were brought up because of, they don't worry about crashing a car. They don't worry about spinning out. Nothing really slows them down. And I think that the way that they race is just at a much faster pace than what you and I wanted to race at because we had to save the tires and you had to take care of the car. You don't take care of the car. You don't save the tires. There's a few places that you save the tires. And you guys raced, the modifieds at a lot of the tracks that we race our late models at. But it's just it's a very different mentality in the way that they think. Yeah, I mean,
I compare it to like when my son has his phone. He scrolls so fast. I'm like slow down. So they don't have to because they comprehend things so much quicker than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Toughest question of the day. What was your first car that you drove on the street?
My first car was a 1984 Ford Ranger XLT extended cab.
Did you buy it yourself?
Didn't. My parents bought it for me. It was $3,000. And I did not want it. Like, I think my dad wanted it or my dad thought it was going to be a good vehicle. I did not want it. So that would have been in 1993 or 94. The popular thing was like S10s or Mazdas lowered
Slam
with like
them.
wheels.
See if you could rip the reflectors off the road.
Yeah, well, I can tell you a Ford Ranger wasn't a cool truck to slam. I couldn't even find a picture of one slammed. Yeah. And that's what I really wanted, like, because that's what my friends had. And so I kept it for like, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And I traded it up for a little S10 Blazer, and I paid the difference for my parents. But I didn't want it.
So you just got rid of it. So that's the way it goes.
There's no good history behind it.
What you thought was cool, your parents didn't think was cool.
No.
Pretty much the same as today. We've learned that our parents, we are our parents.
Yeah, and I'm having those discussions with Carter right now because he's going to be 15 in a couple of months, and so you start having like, what do you want for a car, and his expectations and the reality of what he's going to get are significantly
about the
different.
same.
Yeah, that's right. That's
about
right.
the same. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks,
great
dude.
catching up with you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.